The ship that shouldn't exist. In the vast, empty darkness of space, something impossible drifted. It was a ship, but it should not have existed. Its design was not human, not alien, not anything known in the galaxy. Its hull was smooth, black like the void itself, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. There were no engines, no thrusters, no markings, as if it had simply appeared from nowhere. For years, rumors had spread across the galaxy about the ghost ship. Some said it was a lost weapon from an ancient war. Others believed it was alive. The Galactic Council had sent warships to investigate. None had returned. Now, it was humanity's turn to find the truth. The mission begins. Captain Elias Carter stood on the bridge of his small salvage vessel, the Starfire, staring at the massive, silent structure floating before them. It was far bigger than he had imagined, almost the size of a small moon. Dead, silent, waiting. His crew shifted nervously behind him. "It looks wrong," whispered Taravos, the ship's navigator. "That thing's not a ship," muttered Garrick, the engineer. "It's a damn nightmare." Elias didn't respond. He had seen war wrecks, abandoned space stations, and lost colonies before. But this ship felt different. A chill ran down his spine as his scanner beeped. No life signs, no energy readings, nothing. Yet somehow, he knew it was not dead. The first mistake. "All right," Elias said, his voice steady. "Let's not waste time. We came here to investigate, so we're going in." The crew hesitated. "Captain," Tara said slowly, "every ship that went near this thing disappeared. What if We're not like them," Elias interrupted. "We're smarter. We don't take stupid risks." Garrick scoffed. "Flying into an unknown death trap seems pretty stupid to me." Elias ignored him and gave the command. "Prep the shuttle. We're boarding." The crew exchanged glances. No one liked it. But they all knew Elias Carter was not a man who turned away from mystery. The Starfire moved closer, its lights washing over the black surface of the ghost ship. It was featureless, smooth like glass. Then, as if sensing their approach, a door appeared. The impossible door. It wasn't there before. But now, right in front of them, a massive circular entrance was slowly opening, revealing a dark passage inside. No signals, no technology. It had simply appeared. "That's not normal," Garrick muttered. Tara stepped back from the scanner. "I don't like this, Captain." Elias felt the unease too. A door that appears on its own. A ship with no power, yet still moving. But his curiosity was stronger than his fear. "We came to explore. Let's move." Crossing the threshold, the shuttle detached from the Starfire and moved toward the dark opening. Inside, the walls were smooth and cold, glowing faintly with shifting, alien symbols. The light pulsed like a heartbeat. Elias ran his fingers across the wall. No seams, no panels, no circuits. It was like the ship was grown, not built. Garrick's voice was a whisper. "This ain't right." The deeper they went, the more wrong everything felt. There was no gravity, yet they floated normally. Their suits had oxygen, yet they could breathe without them. Tara checked her wrist scanner. "Captain, something's messing with our equipment. No signals are getting out." Elias turned. "What do you mean?" She shook her head. "I mean, our ship can't hear us anymore." Silence fell over the crew. Then, a noise. Soft at first, like distant whispers in a language none of them understood. The lights in the corridor flashed brighter for a second, then dimmed again. Elias tightened his grip on his weapon. "Stay alert." The moment everything changed, they continued forward, reaching what looked like a central chamber. The walls were lined with massive, pod-like structures. Inside each pod, something moved. Tara gasped. "Are those bodies?" Elias stepped closer. The pods were filled with strange figures, tall, humanoid, their skin covered in metallic patterns. They were not human. They were not alive, yet their eyes were open. And suddenly, every single one of them turned to look at him. The first contact. The moment Elias Carter locked eyes with the figures inside the pods, his blood ran cold. They weren't moving. They weren't breathing. Yet somehow, they were aware. The crew stood frozen, staring at the humanoid figures suspended in the strange metallic liquid. Their bodies were unlike anything they had ever seen, a fusion of flesh and something else, something not quite organic, not quite machine. Their skin shimmered, shifting between metallic silver and deep black, as if it was reacting to their presence. Then, one of them blinked. Tara's sharp inhale broke the silence. "Captain, we need to leave. Right now." Elias didn't move. His instincts screamed at him to turn around and run, but his mind refused. This was discovery. This was why he was here. Still, something felt wrong. Very wrong. The awakening. Before Elias could speak, a soft humming sound filled the chamber. The air grew thick, like it was pressing down on them. The walls pulsed, and the strange symbols that lined them shifted again, this time faster. Garrick clenched his jaw. Something's happening. Elias stepped forward, raising his wrist scanner. "If they're alive, we need to know what they are." His scanner flickered, glitching as if the ship itself was interfering with its readings. Then, the lights inside the pods turned deep red. A low, inhuman whisper echoed through the chamber. It wasn't coming from the pods. It was coming from the walls. "They are watching." The whisper wasn't just sound. It was in their heads, crawling through their minds like a living thing. Tara grabbed her helmet, breathing heavily. "Captain, I don't like this. I really don't like this." Neither did Elias. But before he could order them to move, the first pod cracked open. First contact. The metallic liquid poured onto the floor, evaporating as it hit the air. The figure inside slowly rose. It was taller than any human, at least 7 feet, its elongated limbs stretching unnaturally as it stepped forward. Its eyes glowed, not with light, but with something deeper, something ancient. It turned its head, looking directly at Elias. Then, it spoke, but it didn't use words. Images slammed into Elias's mind, so fast and chaotic that he stumbled backward. A burning world. A war that was never recorded. A fleet of ships unlike anything in the known galaxy. And then, a warning. His breath came out ragged as he tried to process what he had just seen. "Captain." Tara's voice was distant, panicked. Garrick raised his weapon. "Tell me I can shoot this thing." The creature took another step forward. Elias's instincts screamed, but before he could react, the entire ship came alive. Nowhere to run. The corridors lit up, shifting like living veins, pulsing with energy. A deep, rumbling vibration shook through the ship, not mechanical, but organic. Elias felt it in his bones. "Back to the shuttle. Now," he barked. Tara and Garrick didn't hesitate. They turned and ran. The humanoid figure watched them go, but it didn't follow. It simply stood there, its expression unreadable. As they reached the corridor, Elias's comms crackled with static. Then a voice, distorted and fragmented. "Too late. You should not have come." Then, the entrance they had come through sealed shut behind them. They were trapped. The chase begins. Elias slammed his fist against the sealed door, but it didn't budge. The smooth black surface didn't even have a seam. It was as if the entrance had never existed. Garrick cursed under his breath. "I knew this was a damn mistake." Tara was already pulling up the holomap on her wrist scanner, but it flickered and distorted, showing unreadable symbols. "Navigation's down. Comms are dead. We're completely cut off." Elias forced himself to stay calm. Panic wouldn't help them now. Behind them, the pod chamber was silent, but they all felt it. They were being watched. That thing in the pod. It had let them go. Why? Something was very wrong with this ship, and now they were trapped inside it. The living maze. "We need to move," Elias said, his voice steady despite the cold sweat on his back. "We find another way out." Tara swallowed hard. "Captain, what if there is no way out?" Elias didn't answer, because she might be right. The corridor ahead stretched into darkness, its walls shifting subtly, as if they were breathing. The ship was changing around them. Elias motioned for them to stay close as they moved forward, their boots barely making a sound. The further they went, the more unnatural it felt. The lights flickered. The air felt thicker. And then the whispers returned, faint at first, then growing louder. Not words, not voices, memories, flashes of battles, planets burning, entire species erased. Garrick staggered, gripping his head. "What the hell is that?" Tara's face was pale. "It's not just sounds, it's inside my mind." Elias gritted his teeth, shaking off the visions. "Keep moving." But the whispers weren't just memories anymore. They were warnings. The first attack. The corridor ahead suddenly shifted, revealing an opening to a vast cathedral-like chamber. And that's when they saw them. Figures, tall, humanoid, but wrong. Their bodies shimmered, twisting between metal and flesh, their limbs elongated and unnatural. Their eyes glowed, locked onto the humans. Then they moved. Not like living things, not like machines, but like shadows bleeding through reality itself. And they were coming straight for them. "Run," Elias shouted. Tara didn't need to be told twice. She bolted, Garrick right behind her. Elias fired his weapon, the plasma bolt slamming into one of the figures, but it didn't stop. The creature absorbed the energy, its body rippling like liquid metal before reforming. They couldn't kill them. The race against time. The crew sprinted through the shifting corridors, their lungs burning, footsteps echoing in the endless metallic halls. The ship was changing, sealing off paths behind them, forcing them forward. Tara stumbled. Elias grabbed her arm, pulling her forward. The creatures didn't run. They glided, moving in eerie silence, their arms stretching like liquid as they reached for them. Elias could feel it. They weren't just chasing them. They were hurting them. But toward what? Then, light ahead. A door. A massive, circular gateway. And on the other side, a control room. "Move. Now." Elias barked. Tara lunged through the door first, Garrick close behind. Elias was the last one in. And just as the creatures reached him, the door slammed shut, a heartbeat of silence. Then a single word echoed in Elias's mind. "You should not be here." A dead man's message. Elias turned, his breathing ragged. The control room was different from the rest of the ship, more structured, like a command center. Holographic symbols floated around them, glowing softly. And in the center, a skeleton. The remains of a humanoid figure, slumped over what looked like a control panel. Its skull was elongated, its fingers long and delicate. Tara took a shaky step forward. Who, or what, is that? Elias examined the remains, his gut twisting. Not human, not a known alien species, but definitely a pilot. Or the last survivor. The ship rumbled, as if sensing their discovery. Then suddenly, a message played. A voice, garbled but ancient. The final words of the ship's creator. They were never meant to return, but they are awake now. The words sent a chill through Elias's bones. Who were they? And why did this ship exist at all? The answer, he realized, would change everything. The ship's true power. The room hummed with unseen energy, the air thick with something ancient and powerful. The glowing symbols around them pulsed like a heartbeat, casting eerie shadows against the metal walls. Elias's breath was heavy, his eyes locked onto the alien skeleton slumped over the console. Whoever they had been, they had died trying to send a warning. The last message still echoed in his head. They were never meant to return, but they are awake now. Behind him, Tara's voice wavered. "Captain, what does that mean?" Elias didn't know, but he was damn sure it wasn't good. Garrick took a cautious step toward the alien remains. So, either this guy failed, or he was trying to keep something locked away. Elias scanned the symbols floating in the air, trying to make sense of them. Some were familiar, as if his brain was slowly understanding their meaning. And then, he saw it. A star map, but not just any map. This one showed a war that never existed in any recorded history. Entire systems wiped out, fleets erased, planets turned into empty voids. At the center of it all, this ship. A warship, a prison, a last line of defense. And the enemy. The symbols shifted. Elias felt his stomach drop. The creatures chasing them weren't just part of the ship. They were the ones it had been built to stop. The lock is broken. The low guttural hum vibrated through the ship. The lights dimmed, the very walls shifting as if the ship had felt them learning the truth. Tara grabbed Elias's arm. "Something's happening." Outside the sealed door, the whispers returned, louder now. Urgent. Angry. Then, a deep metallic groan filled the chamber. The door behind them began to open. The creatures outside had stopped waiting. They were coming in. "We need to move, now," Elias barked. Garrick spun toward the control panel. There has to be a way to shut them out. Elias scanned the floating holograms, desperately searching for something. Anything that could give them control. And then, he saw it. A manual override. A sequence designed to reactivate the ship's primary systems. A weapon. A final failsafe. Tara saw it too. "Wait, you're not actually thinking of activating the ship, are you?" Elias's jaw tightened. "We don't have a choice." The awakening of a monster. Elias reached for the controls, but before he could, the ship reacted first. A shockwave of invisible energy pulsed outward, sending a tremor through the ship. Tara staggered. What the hell was that? Elias didn't answer. His eyes were locked onto the alien skeleton. It was gone. The remains had vanished, as if they had never been there. The symbols around them flashed violently, shifting too fast to read. The air crackled with something electric, something that made every hair on Elias's body stand on end. Then, for the first time, the ship spoke. Not in words, but in a voice that shook through their very bones. Power restored. A deep rumble echoed through the corridors. The entire ship came alive. A ship unlike any other. Outside the control room, the creatures froze. The whispers stopped. And then, they screamed. Not in pain, not in fear, but in pure rage. Tara backed away. "Elias, what did we just do?" Elias barely heard her. His eyes were locked on the holographic star map, now showing the entire galaxy in real time. The ship wasn't just powering up. It was reaching out, sending a signal, summoning something. And then the impossible happened. The ship moved. Without engines, without thrusters, it shifted through space like a ghost, defying every law of physics. The stars outside the viewport blurred, shifting in ways that didn't make sense. And then, a fleet appeared. The true enemy arrives. Elias's breath caught in his throat. Massive, black, angular ships materialized out of the void, their surfaces shifting like liquid metal. They were unlike anything in human history. But Elias knew, deep in his gut, this was the enemy, the ones this ship had been built to fight. Tara's face went pale. "They're already here." The ship's voice rumbled again. "Containment breach. Preparing for engagement." Elias swallowed hard. Oh hell. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. The ancient warning. The ship trembled, as if reality itself was bending around it. Outside the viewport, the enemy fleet hovered in silence. Black, shifting, alive in a way that no ship should be. Elias had seen countless warships in his time, but these weren't ships. They were predators. "Captain," Tara whispered, gripping the console. What are those things?" Elias didn't answer, because he didn't know. But the ship did. A war that never ended. The holographic display shifted again. This time, the map didn't show the galaxy as it was. It showed the past. Planets burning. Stars collapsing. Entire civilizations erased. And then, a single ship standing alone against the void. Their ship. This wasn't a warship. It was a warning beacon. A last message from a species that no longer existed. The ship's voice rumbled through the room. Ancient, deep, unfeeling. They are the hollow. They do not conquer. They do not bargain. They consume. Garrick took a step back, his face pale. What the hell does that mean? Tara's voice shook. It means this thing was never a weapon. It was a lock, and we just opened it. Nowhere to run. Elias clenched his fists. Then we seal it again. He reached for the control panel, but the ship denied him. A pulse of energy knocked him back, sending him crashing against the floor. The ship had chosen. It had awakened, and now it had a mission. The voice spoke again, filling the room with its weight. Containment failed. Directive revised. Outside, the hollow fleet began to move, and so did their ship. The first strike. Elias pulled himself up just as the first hollow warship fired. But instead of dodging, their ship did something impossible. It absorbed the attack. The energy blast vanished into the hull, rippling across the surface like liquid metal. Then, it fired back. A single pulse of energy erupted from their ship, striking the hollow warship head-on. The enemy ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. Tara gasped. What the hell was that? Elias stared at the controls. We're not flying this ship. Garrick swallowed hard. Then who is? Elias turned back to the viewport. The stars shifted, and suddenly, they weren't in the same part of space anymore. The ship had just teleported. A message from the dead. The holographic map changed again. A new set of symbols and coordinates appeared. Tara frowned. What is it showing us? Elias exhaled. A location. The ship was leading them somewhere. A place that might hold the key to stopping the hollow, or the final piece of the weapon that destroyed them last time. The ship's voice whispered one last message. Find the last star. It is the only way. Elias turned to his crew. We don't have a choice. We follow it. Tara hesitated. And if this is a trap? Elias smirked. Then we spring it. Their ship accelerated, warping toward a place no human had ever seen. And behind them, the hollow fleet pursued. The race to save the galaxy had begun. The ultimate escape plan. The ship moved like a ghost, slipping through space faster than any human vessel ever could. One moment, Elias and his crew were facing a hollow armada. The next, they were somewhere else. A dead star system. Planets reduced to floating ruins, their surfaces scarred by weapons unknown to modern science. The last star. The place the ship had brought them. Tara's voice was hushed with awe. What happened here? Garrick scanned the debris field. A war. Elias's jaw tightened. Not just a war. A massacre. The secret buried in the void. The ship slowed, drifting toward what looked like a shattered space station, floating aimlessly. Except, it wasn't completely dead. The ship's holographic map pulsed, signaling something inside. Elias narrowed his eyes. That's what it wants us to find. Tara hesitated. Captain, we don't know what's in there. Elias smirked. When has that ever stopped us? Boarding the ruins. The air inside the station was thin, the walls covered in markings that glowed faintly. More of the same symbols they had seen on the ship. Elias led the way, his footsteps echoing in the abandoned corridors. Then, a noise, a deep metallic breath. Not alone. Terra gripped her weapon. "Did you hear that?" Garrick nodded. "I really wish I didn't." A shadow moved ahead. Then, from the darkness, a figure stepped forward. The last guardian. It was tall, humanoid, but its body wasn't fully organic. Parts of it were metal, fused with something unknown. It had once been alive. Now it was something else. Its eyes glowed dimly, scanning them. Then it spoke. "You are not what I expected." Elias tightened his grip on his weapon. "And you are." The figure tilted its head. "The last of my kind. The last one to keep the weapon hidden." Terra swallowed. "What weapon?" The being's eyes dimmed. "The only thing that ever killed the Hollow. The weapon of extinction." The guardian led them deeper into the station, past halls filled with ancient frozen bodies, remains of a people who had fought the Hollow and lost. At the center of the station, a massive machine stood, pulsing with dormant energy. The ship's holographic map lit up again, signaling this was what it had been searching for. The guardian placed a hand on the machine. "The Hollow consume. They are endless. But we built something that could end them." Elias stared at the machine. It didn't look like a weapon. It looked alive. Terra frowned. "Why didn't you use it?" The guardian's voice was distant. "Because the price was too high." The terrible truth. Elias clenched his fists. "You're saying this thing can wipe them out?" "Completely." The guardian nodded. "Yes, but not just them." Terra's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" The guardian's face darkened. "The Hollow consume everything. This weapon does the same." A long silence filled the chamber. Garrick's voice was grim. "You're telling me, if we use this thing, we might be destroying more than just the Hollow?" The guardian nodded. "It will erase them from existence, but it will take parts of the galaxy with it. The choice is yours." No way back. Outside, the Hollow fleet arrived. Dozens of massive, shifting warships. They had found them. Alarms blared through the ruined station. The ship's voice echoed in their minds. "Hollow presence detected. Prepare for battle." Elias looked at the weapon, looked at his crew, and then made his choice. "We end this. Now." The final stand and escape. The station trembled, alarms blaring as the Hollow fleet closed in. Outside the viewport, black, shifting warships filled the void, their hulls twisting like liquid shadow. They weren't just ships. They were alive, and they were hungry. Elias turned to the ancient weapon, its dormant core glowing faintly, waiting. A weapon powerful enough to erase the Hollow forever. But the cost. Terra gritted her teeth. "Captain, if we activate this thing, we could destroy everything within light years." Elias clenched his jaw. "And if we don't, the Hollow will devour everything anyway." Silence. Then, the first attack hit. The station shuddered violently, metal groaning as enemy weapons ripped into the outer walls. They were out of time. The impossible choice. The guardian stood beside the weapon, its ancient body humming with faint energy. "You must decide." Elias exhaled slowly. He had been in 100 impossible situations before. This one was the worst. He looked at Terra, at Garrick, at the ship that had led them here. And then he made the call. "We're activating it." Garrick swore. "You're actually doing this." Elias turned to him. "Do you have a better idea?" Garrick opened his mouth, then shut it. Because he didn't. The last defense. The guardian stepped forward, placing a hand on the console. The weapon stirred, its core pulsing as long-dormant energy roared to life. The Hollow felt it instantly. They screamed, not in fear, in rage. Outside, their ship surged forward, desperate to stop what was happening. But it was too late. The battle that shouldn't have been possible. The station's defensive turrets activated, firing golden beams of pure energy at the Hollow fleet. The enemy warships shrieked, twisting violently as they tried to adapt. But something was different. The weapon's activation had changed the rules. Their advantage, the ability to consume energy, was gone. Tara's eyes widened. We can actually hurt them now. Elias didn't hesitate. Then let's make them bleed. The ship's weapons activated, releasing a shockwave that sent enemy vessels spiraling. One by one, the hollow began to fall. But more were still coming. And the weapon was not ready yet. The final defense. They're boarding the station, Garrick shouted. The crew turned as the station's bulkheads buckled, black veins of hollow matter crawling through the walls. Elias grabbed his weapon. We hold them off until the weapon fires. The first hollow warriors tore through the station's walls, their elongated forms dripping with darkness, eyes burning like dying stars. And then, the fight truly began. Holding the line, Elias fired first, his plasma bolts tearing into the hollow warriors. But they didn't go down like normal enemies. They twisted, limbs shifting unnaturally, adapting as they moved. Garrick swung his shock baton, cracking one across the skull, only for the creature to split apart and reform behind him. We can't kill them, Tara yelled. The Guardian moved forward, raising its hands. A pulse of golden energy erupted, pushing the hollow back. They shrieked, retreating. The Guardian's voice was calm but firm. They cannot be killed, only contained. Elias wiped blood from his face, then contained them. The Guardian pressed its hands to the weapon's core. The entire station shook. The weapon fires. The hollow fleet outside panicked, their movements frantic as they realized what was happening. The weapon was reaching critical power. It was ready. Elias grabbed his communicator. Everyone, back to the ship. Now. They ran, fighting through collapsing corridors, dodging as the hollow desperately tried to stop them. The Guardian remained behind. Tara turned. Wait. You're not coming with us. The Guardian shook its head. This is my purpose. Go. The station began to break apart, metal cracking as the weapon unleashed its full energy. The hollows screamed, their forms tearing apart, their ships disintegrating as the energy wave rippled across space. It was working. Elias and his crew barely made it to the ship before the station collapsed into a massive pulse of light. Their ship's engines roared, launching them out of the blast radius just in time. And behind them, the hollow fleet vanished. Gone. Erased. The aftermath. Silence filled the cockpit. Elias stared at the empty void, his hands still gripping the controls. It was over. The hollow were gone. But so was everything else. The weapon had erased the enemy, but it had also wiped out an entire sector of space. Nothing remained of the station. Nothing remained of the Guardian. It was as if none of it had ever existed. Tara swallowed hard. Did we just win? Garrick exhaled. If that's what victory looks like, I don't know if I ever want to see it again. Elias didn't speak, because deep down, he knew this wasn't the end. The hollow were gone. But the ship that had led them here, it was still awake, and it still had a purpose. The ship's holographic map pulsed again. A new set of coordinates appeared. Tara's voice was shaky. Captain, it's telling us to go somewhere else. Elias's grip on the controls tightened. The war was over, but the ship had more to do, and it had chosen them to finish what it started. Elias exhaled. Then he punched the throttle forward. Let's see where this story takes us next.